Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Crown and today we are going to have some more stories that I hope that you will enjoy. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to the channel, like the video if you enjoyed it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now, without further ado, let's go! Next story. Bridezilla Catering Rage. I used to manage a catering company for my boss while he was undergoing chemotherapy. This is one of my first gigs where I was in charge. The bride calls me at 1 in the afternoon the day before the wedding and decides she wants a cheaper menu. She and her husband already paid for almost everything and it's far too late to change anything. I told her that, but she started throwing a fit, saying that she wants to change the steak to a chicken and demanded we either serve chicken or change her price of the chicken and she will not be paying for anything extra. I informed her that according to the contract, she is to receive 150 steak lunches at a price of $50 per plate. And it also states that she can't change the menu unless she does it at least a month before the wedding. When she hears this, she flips the hell out and starts screaming at me, calling me illiterate, and telling me her fiancé is a lawyer and they will sue me, etc, etc. She handed the phone over to her fiancé and he also started screaming at me, saying that it's his freaking wedding and he can have whatever he wants. They end up firing me at the moment and I inform him that the cancellation fee is 90% of the cost of catering, which I was already paid for. And they start screaming at me, telling me that I am nothing and they can get anyone to cater for them and they are going to make me pay for it. They ended up hanging up on me, thank God, and I had an inkling that I should probably keep making the food in case they call tomorrow and in case they want us to cater. So we finish cooking and the next day at 7 AM I get a call from the groom and he demands that I come down there to cater the wedding or they are going to sue me for not providing service. I calmly told the guy that they have terminated the contract yesterday, and as per the termination clause on the contract, we are entitled to keep 90% of the entire cost of catering. And now he is raging. He did not say anything, but I can feel how mad he is over the phone. After a moment of awkward silence, I inform him that if he would like us to cater the event, he has to do same-day catering, which is 3 times the original price I charged him. He has to pay all fees in advance, and the food depends on what we have available. And we also reserve the right to refuse service. He gets really angry at this point, telling us this is extortion. He already paid for food, so he didn't have to pay again. I informed him again of the termination clause, and also informed him that the food was for a previous contract, and that contract had ended and he would have to pay for it again. He ended up starting a new contract with us and for 3 times the original price. He tried to change the menu again just to spite me, but I then made sure he knew I reserved the right to refuse service. He and his bridezilla kept everything the same down to the baby carrots and of course the steak, all while paying me 3 times the original price if they had just stuck with the original contract. As soon as we got to the venue, before I got anything out, I made the bride and groom sign the new contract and pay me completely in advance, $22,000, and left to deposit the money. While I was gone, they harassed my caterers and threatened someone with the portion, even though they were legal. He tried to sue us later and the judge heard the recorded phone calls, saw the contract and told him to pay my legal fees. I looked him up on Facebook recently. Apparently they are divorced now. It's been only 3 years. Next story. Terror neighbors make our lives hell, return the favor by getting them raided, as we found out that we'd be expecting not 1 but 2 kids. We knew we had to move to a real house with more space. At the time, we were still living in a one-bedroom studio, one up from the ground floor, with its only entrance being a metal fire escape stairs. Not ideal for a pregnant woman, let alone to live with two small babies. So we found a privately leased house that was newly renovated and had all the room and a large garden we were looking for. Signed the lease and immediately collected the keys. As the owner drove off, the woman next door came up to me, immediately demanding we not make noise before noon as her boyfriend works nights and sleeps in, and a whole bunch of do's and don'ts. So right off the bat we knew trouble incoming. As the house was fully renovated and not much had to be done, we were like, don't poke the bear. We'll do the things that make noise after noon. We moved in after 2 weeks and the whole street was warm and welcoming. My wife was almost due giving birth to my twin daughters, and some offered help with anything we needed. Real, kind people. They also told us about our neighbors. Nobody liked them. He was a big bully and got into arguments with everybody. Also were known as radio pirates, as an illegal broadcasting on radio with old Dutch bangers. This music is just terror on your ears, and possibly used on terrorists on black sites, which went alongside them partying Thursday to Sunday till 5 in the morning. Loud music, constant yelling, always drunken, etc. Really something to look forward to when moving in. Certainly with 2 babies on the way. The partying began immediately. Full blast. Real classy for someone demanding to be quiet when a douchebag needs his beauty sleep. Then one day, my father-in-law came to put new grass in. He has his trailer parked at the back of our houses, which is a public space. Not according to him though. That exact spot where the trailer was parked, full with grass sods, quite heavy stuff, was his spot. We had to move the trailer. Not going to happen, as I was not planning to walk all the way around the house with the sods. He got angry right away and demanded that I move it. I told him to get lost. I was done with him already then and there. I'm also a ginger, so besides having no soul, I do have a temper which is always in check until you provoke me repeatedly. Anyone who knows me will tell you that you really had to make an effort for that to happen. We went on working. At the end of the day comes when my father-in-law wants to leave, hooks up the trailer and bam, there was a douchebag, telling him off, yelling that it's his spot and he better not do it again or else. Mess with me all you want, I can handle it, but what you don't do is threaten my family. I ran outside and told him in no uncertain terms to back off or he will be the sorry one. Total bluff on my side. Yes, I have that timber, but I'm not impressively built and have no hidden fighting skills. I do fight dirty though. He backs off. Father-in-law leaves and I go inside where I find my wife crying. She got scared of him maybe doing something to her father and me. This is something we don't need right now. Combined with hormones from being pregnant, and you can paint that picture. So I'm even more pissed but had to promise not to act on anything. I won't dear. Not yet anyway. Time went on without any real incident, and then came the time my wife went into labor. Didn't go smoothly and ended up having to deliver with C-section, or whatever it's called, because daughter 2 was almost strangled by the umbilical cord. We had to stay 3 nights, excruciating nights due to a lot of things. Finally, we got to go home. The family had put a giant sign in our front yard welcoming the babies. The sign was already up for a few days prior to coming home, so our friendly neighbors definitely knew about it. But did they care? No, they did not. From the first night on, they started to party and broadcasted their terror music. They started at noon and continued to until 5 or 6 in the morning. Classy. They also kept going for days, so it wasn't just Thursday to Sunday. It was all week long and the next. So we were broken, hardly slept. One of our daughters suffered from heavy cramps combined with all the noise, and her parents at the end of their wits, so she cried a lot. And then I just had it. I researched some things on radio pirates, the laws and regulations, and on his large 5 meters plus antenna in his backyard, which was illegal in itself. But he used it to illegally broadcast on radio, which meant he had a lot of equipment to do so, which was even more illegal and can even get you jailed. But at the very least they could seize it all and fine him big time, in the 10 to 45k area. Now I did not immediately turn him in, but instead we're looking for another house to lease first. This is because I figured it wouldn't sit well with him, and having a wife and 2 babies in the house alone during the day because I had to go to work. I hear you guys thinking, why not involve the police? Well, they are utterly useless in cases like this. We called once and what they did disturbs me to this day. They rang at their doorbell and immediately started off by saying, "We called them about noise complaints." Yes, you read that right. No protection or whatsoever. Just blatantly told them we were the reason they are there. Told them to keep it down and that was it. He didn't even follow up with us or anything. As you can guess, douchebag now was even more pissed and told me the next day or yelled over the fence that separates our backyard that I really should not do that again. A threat yet again of which I told the police. I didn't report it the first time as I chucked that up to alpha male at the heat of the moment. But without witnesses to corroborate, nothing could be done yet again. Some days later I walked out the front door and he just stepped out of his car. Came up to me demanding I cut back some of our ivy that grew on our side of the fence because it tangled in with his big antenna. He would be gone for some hours and I could come into his garden to cut back the ivy that grew through on their side. And then a light bulb went on above my head. I told him politely that I would do that immediately. Why? Because that gave me the opportunity to find out the make and model of this antenna to ascertain its signal strengths, where the cables go exactly and what kind of cables they were. Again, to know the signal strengths it handled. Also, it gave me a good view of the equipment he had through the window so I could snap some photographs of it. This was the icing on the cake, because in the meantime we did manage to find a new home and already had signed a lease so we would be gone in 2 weeks. Luckily, we only had to paint some walls for the girls' room and furthermore just pack up our things and move them into other houses. So after I trimmed the ivy and collected my evidence, I went online that night to find out the proper channels to report the broadcast pirate and which entity was tasked with catching said pirate. Turned out I had to call the telecom agency, but also the police. Wasn't too happy with the latter, but I remembered I have a nephew that works for the police. Officially, his area was immigration, but knew enough colleagues that could help us and we could trust not to confront them again, saying I was the one that sent them. That was extremely important for our safety when doing what I was going to do. So I gave both the agency and the police all evidence I collected and pointed them to the frequencies he pirated so they could listen in. Then they started a neighborhood investigation, which wasn't really necessary, but this was to cover our butts to make it look like he got caught by accident because they had an active investigation in our area. You never know what he can learn from legal documents and such. We asked him to wait with the raid. Yes, they raid pirates' houses, preferably in the early hours of the day because of his beauty sleep, rendering him incapable of fleeing or hide evidence and so on. We moved 2 weeks later and they raided him 2 days after we moved. All of his equipment, computers, radios, cell phones, and his car were seized. He left in cuffs, his wife/girlfriend did too, for making a big scene and tried to interfere. all of which was live reported to me by one of my ex-neighbors who were equally ecstatic about this. It turned out, this wasn't the first time he got caught but his third time. His car had no insurance on it and his MOT failed. This would normally have no big consequence because he didn't drive it while raided. But they had the guy surveilled on for a week. That definitely meant he was seen driving it while not having insurance and valid MOT. He was fined somewhere around 30k euros, went to jail for 12 weeks and everything seized was destroyed except the car. His girlfriend had to do 40 hours of community service. They had to sell the house, which made for very happy neighbors as they too were over and done with them. Like I said, I do fight, but very dirty. You have to really make an effort for me to get to that point. They did and suffered. Over a year later, when shopping for groceries, I encountered them. With the foulest of looks, if looks could kill, I'd be a smoldering heap of ash, but nothing more than that. Next story. Thief tried to steal my car, accidentally filled it up with gas and brought it back to me instead. My first car was a 1984 Jeep CJ7. A pretty sweet ride for a dirt poor teenager in the 90s. I was working midnights at a gas station and loaned it to my brother who was taking a date to a party. I got a call around 1 a.m. from my brother who told me he left the keys in a Jeep and it was stolen. I was devastated. I was still on the phone with my brother when the thieves pulled my Jeep into my gas station to fill up on gas. As luck would have it, the gas gauge on my Jeep was broken and always read empty. And I worked at the only 24-hour gas stations in the area. I pressed the silent alarm and proceeded to fill up my Jeep. It was a full-serve station. When the thieves were out of the Jeep, I saw an opportunity to slip the key out of this ignition and into my bucket. They paid for the gas and argued amongst each other who had the keys last. The delay was enough for the police to arrive. I had to explain the story to the officer half a dozen times before he understood. The thieves had this stunned look of disbelief on their faces. I will never forget it. The cops were belly laughing, telling the story to dispatch. All the while, the thieves sat in cuffs in the back of the squad car. And the story made most of the major newspapers the following day. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.